nowadays, cross-cultural communication and so forth. The next two, critical thinking and creative problem solving. This is wonderful jargon, you hear it all the time, right? But here is a candidate shows evidence of applying that in the classroom, applying that in difficult situations and so forth. So we create a dialogue. We create a dialogue about unexpected situations. In a demonstration, if we're able to do that, we try to make the teachers relax as possible. The unexpected that happens. A student starts discussing something, that is off topic. A teacher has to think at that moment, what do I do? How do I interfere? What are my decisions and so forth? And that's where the teaching instinct comes in, because it's always unpredictable. That's the beauty of teaching, the science and the art. So we want to see what is the teacher's ability to, of course, be well planned. Better be well planned, and so forth. But then beyond that plan, to be able to problem solve outside of that. That is more and more needed in our classrooms, and you can see evidence of that. And then the last C, change. Things are changing so fast. And so I may see somebody who's been in the field for 15 years and has done so many things and presentations, that's great. But if they're kind of, okay, I know everything, I know what I'm talking, no, The adaptability, hush. The adaptability to all of the changes in the field and your students. And again, I think that those are qualities that you can develop at any time and become more and more aware of. Sorry, let's see. A context, culture, critical thinking, creative problem solving, and a change. So.
Any of the other panelists would like to quickly add?
I think the idea of a teacher instinct is a really important concept, and some people often refer to this as factor X. And it's that ability, in my opinion, to be able to make decisions in the moment. So when you're in the classroom working with your students, you have to make a lot of decisions in real time. And the ability to do that successfully, I think, is a really difficult thing, but it also tells me a lot about where a teacher is coming from in terms of ability to relate to learners, make those critical decisions in the moment for the benefit of students. So I like the idea of a teacher instinct, and as I say, often think of that as a kind of a factor X that an effective teacher might have.
We're going to move on to question 3. This one is for Nick. What is the most important thing your school or organization offers to new teachers to help them become more professionally qualified for future jobs?
Okay, as I mentioned before, the British Council, normally you need 2 years post-CELTA or post-Trinity TESOL experience. And the reason that we look for the CELTA or the Trinity TESOL is because those 2 qualifications are kind of grounded in a communicative methodology. So that's the methodology that we like to see our teachers using. And so we would like all our teachers to have that qualification, because that's our base level, if you like. That's where we're working from. But at the British Council in Egypt, we're very fortunate, because since 2008 we've been running a program called the Teacher Support Program. And this allows us to actually employ people who have just finished their CELTA or Trinity TESOL and don't have the 2 years experience that most British councils worldwide look for. And this program is primarily designed to support new teachers. And we do that in a number of ways, which I think are hopefully very useful for those on the program. The first thing is that we provide them with a buddy, somebody who has been working with us a reasonably short period of time, who can support them in an informal way. So may help them with lesson planning, may give them a bit of advice about where to find a cup of tea in the afternoon, that kind of thing. But it's a very informal relationship. We also make sure that everyone on this program has a mentor. And a mentor is somebody normally with the Delta, who's quite experienced. And they're there to provide pedagogic support. So they will help the teachers plan a couple of lessons which they then are observed on, and then provide the feedback. But this process is very developmental. We're not interested particularly in assessment. We're not going to give teachers grades for these lessons. We're going to look at some of the problems that they want to focus on, some of the problems they may be having with specific classes or learner types, and see if we can help shape lessons, mould those lessons, and see if we can help teachers to make their choices about what they want to do for the better, as I say, of the learners. So they have a mentor who will be their backup, if you like. We also encourage teachers to observe each other. There's a great deal you can learn from sharing. Watching each other without the pressure of having to write a report or anything, just watching a colleague, making some notes, taking what you want to take away from that process. As long as you can meet with the person you observed and give a little bit of feedback and they can tell you how they felt, that's quite important, so it's a two-way process. But peer observation is a really useful tool. And we also make sure all our teachers have a line manager. A line manager deals with things like problems with salary, problems with maybe health, medical, leave records, that kind of thing. So I guess what we're saying for our new teachers is to provide them with a range of support from different people, looking at different types of things, so that our new teachers don't feel lost in this crazy staff room of 65 teachers and thousands of learners. That staff room is actually a critical place because it is where you can share ideas, where you can actually ask people for help. We try to encourage our teachers to share materials. We have tea drives where you can actually take people's materials and use them and make them your own. We also provide things like first aid training. So little bits of training, insets, ad hoc insets, even foreign language lessons for the native speakers who can then maybe learn a little bit of Arabic, which will help them be effective.
Thank you. Would any of the other panelists like to add? No? Then we'll move on to question 4. This one is for Hanan. What steps do you take to retain the qualified teachers, qualified instructors that are hired?
Well, once an instructor is hired, we start what we call a dual contract relationship between us and the instructor. And this has 3 levels. We have it at the managerial level, and the motivational level, and at the professional and career level. For the management level, we have, like what Nick was saying, what we call a mentor at this time. No matter how experienced the instructor is, we cannot leave him just by him or herself in such a large institution like the School of Continuing Education. So there is a one-on-one guidance by an admin from the department who is responsible of the teacher, as well as what we call a new faculty orientation, where he sits with some experts in assessment, in classroom management, to get to know the guidelines and how we treat our adults at the school, so that we have all our teachers unified. This would give the instructor something that he became part of a family. He's not just left alone in the air. After that, we have what we call an ongoing peer coaching and ongoing help. By this we mean we have departmental meetings on a monthly basis where we assess how the instructor is doing together with other instructors so that they will give feedback to each other. We also have class visits, that is pop class visits, not for records and giving grades, however, but to be able to get a snap of any problem that may arise, anything that the instructor would need to know. This is on the managerial levels. Towards the end, we also have something that the instructor would like to have, like a learner evaluation of how the instructor did all through the course. This would help the instructor as well as the administrator to know where he or she lacks some skills. At the motivational level, though maybe, as I think it is true, competitive packages in terms of monetary compensation is not that wow, but we do think that, or we brag that whoever comes and teaches at the School of Continuing Education, the use of the name and the expertise he gains when teaching at AUC would give him some, together with some scholarships that would make the person feel that he is part again of the family. Those who score really high during the LEI, we have what we call an honor roll and a thank you note that would encourage the instructor to continue delivering up to the level, as well well as a certificate of appreciation. At the career level, we do provide professional development on the subject area as well as generic on general teaching skills that would enhance the instructor's level and qualification of teaching.
Anything to add from the other panelists? Okay, we're going to move on to question 5. This one is for Alex. When a teacher, new or more experienced, asks you for advice to increase professional qualifications or experience, what do you tell them?
Okay, well, when I'm asked this question, which is generally by teaching fellows in the program, the context they're in is a two-year teaching environment, teaching and learning environment. So there's ample opportunities to get some different and varied experiences, and I think that's very key. So the first piece of advice I would give is to teach as many different skills as possible. The fellows do come in teaching study skills, and in general, fellows will teach study skills for a couple of semesters, but there are opportunities to teach other skills like vocabulary, reading, those that we know very well, and it's a very good idea for them to teach those classes in order to help get more experience in different things to teach, and also because employers will be looking at this in the CV later on. The next thing is to look for opportunities that don't involve teaching but are related to teaching. In our department, that would be committee work. We have several committees on such topics as assessments, curriculum, technology use, and these are small. I mean, we're talking about learning communities in this conference, and these committees are kind of like small learning communities as well, where teachers in smaller groups come together, identify problems that need to be solved, or not even problems, but just what do we need to talk more about, what do we need to make better in our program. And so these committees are very important. We encourage fellows to at least spend a little bit of time during their career at AUC working on a committee. The final thing is, in most of our organizations or schools or wherever we are at, there are probably teaching assignments that a lot of people want, and maybe other teaching assignments that people do not want for whatever reason, maybe because of the subject, maybe because of the students involved, maybe because of schedule, could be for a number of reasons. And I would advise fellows or anybody who asks me, take those more unpopular teaching assignments because there's something to learn in those assignments, and it just makes you more flexible. And the final thing I'll end with is flexibility is key. At a time like in a fellowship or at formative period, showing flexibility and training yourself in flexibility in terms of what you do is good for your future, because employers expect flexibility regardless of whether it's in education or elsewhere. You're flexible in the kinds of teaching you do and the kinds of scheduling that you might take on, just showing that you're willing and able to do different things as your school or organization needs. It's very important.
Thank you, Alex. Any other comments to add? Then we're going to move on to question 6. Can you hold your question, the question answer period? For this one's for Heba. What types of training and professional development are most important for developing good qualified teachers?
Okay, so there is really so much you can do for professional development. A lot of these things have already been mentioned by Nick and Hanan and the rest of my colleagues. Something like, I've divided them up into categories. So participating in academic activities like conferences, which obviously we all believe is a good way from the numbers that are here. Workshops, training sessions, things like that. Another really important and significant professional development is peer collaborations. And both Nick and Hanan mentioned this in their programs. Having peer observations and giving your feedback on that. doing discussion groups with colleagues and exchanging ideas and concerns, how you dealt with problems and solutions. Peer coaching sessions where maybe someone would give a workshop about something, or a different idea is what I call lesson potluck. So you could choose a topic or a skill, for example, reading, and then the group comes each with a lesson that they've done related to reading that they felt went well, and explain it and maybe provide activities for that. Participating in e-forums online with different teachers, or even Facebook and Twitter and things like that, where you can exchange ideas and problems as well, is also a good idea. The third category is self-education, and this is really important because you won't always be presented with opportunities where you have someone help you with training sessions or workshops and things like that. The internet is a huge resource. There are a lot of educational videos on YouTube. There are now a lot of free online courses such as MOOCs, and an example of that is Coursera, and there are a lot of other websites for that. Reading different educational articles and research, all of that is a way to gain more knowledge. The next category that I think is really very important as well is self-reflection. This is looking back at your own teaching. You could do that through teacher diaries, or even creating a portfolio of curriculum that you've taught, and look back at that and see how you've taught the course. This allows assessment, it allows reflection on your teaching practices. Conducting action research. This can always help learning. You'll definitely learn something new from your research. And participating in maybe designing curricula, because this shows, or this gets you into a whole different side of curriculum that maybe you wouldn't be able to see before when you actually design something and look at how to put activities together and how to put different ideas and points together. Thank you.
Thank you, Heba. Elena wants to add.
Just to pick up on something that Heba said, if you're actually looking for a teacher training program, look at it, and you're going to invest in it, look at one that really does have a self-reflection, a self-assessment models for teachers. This is becoming more common, but we see it. We see how that is so important in terms of an individual teacher developing and seeing what their strengths are and so forth. And that comes out in a lot of ways. We do this through our Peace Help program, but there are more and more programs that have that. And if it's just top down, like there are all these topics for you, that's not the program for you. You really want that self-reflection, that developmental model. Big difference.
Thank you. Now we want to open it up to you, to any of the questions that you have for the panelists.
Question about the preparation of the qualification before being into service in the college for qualification. What's your suggestions concerning this part? Teachers, especially need qualification, they lack the programs that need their abilities to become teachers.
Well, if I can answer, we cannot ask the government these days to do everything. So as we were saying, people have, to an extent, to depend.
I do not mean the government. I mean that professors, programs.
It's the students' role. It's the students to start, okay, improving their professional development, to start reading on the internet on how to be a successful teacher. Start, as we were mentioning, self-reflection. Start to read, to find out, to enroll in whichever program that would meet their budget at the time, in order to start gaining some experience. We do encourage, as we, in a conference like this, professors, and we do invite professors to come and attend. Maybe they too did not have the chance to get some professional development opportunities, or what we call really hands-on training on how to be a teacher. As we were mentioning, nowadays it's a practitioner thing. It's more hands-on rather than just reading and getting to know about theories and things like that. You need to practice yourself, okay? And maybe videotape yourself and then look what I did right, what I did wrong, and things like that. So I would urge students as well as faculty to work on their own for the time being at least.
Answer is no, sadly. So the CELTA is that there are lots of qualifications that you can do that are called TEFL or EFL, okay? But there are only two that are really recognized worldwide. One of those is the Cambridge English CELTA, and the other is the Trinity TESOL. But there are lots of other courses out there. Some of them are online. You don't actually do any practical teaching at all. You write a few assignments and get a certificate. And when I started teaching 5,000 years ago, that's what I did, and I couldn't get a job. So I realized that the 4 assignments that I'd written didn't allow me to get a job because I'd never been in the classroom. So I think it's quite important to think, where do I want to work? What qualification do I need in order to get a job there? And that's the qualification I should do. But as I say, be very careful with TESOL, TEFL, EFL. Be aware that really the 2 main qualifications that are internationally recognized are the Cambridge CELTA and the Trinity TESOL.
We have a question in the middle back.
I'm sorry.
I just want to add to that for clarification. In the US, actually, we do use TESOL as kind of a generic term, teaching English to speakers of other languages. So you will see TESOL certificates, and several that are recognized in the US, but that's a more generic term. You may see it in names of certificates, but TESOL is used generically, and then you look at specifically what organization is offering it. Okay. PSELT was designed specifically for the MENA region, and we've partnered with World Learning SIT Graduate Institute, so it is US accredited and recognized in that region. And so it's in partnership. But we consider the TESOL certificate, but its name is PSELT. Do you see? So TESOL is a general name.
We had a question in the middle batch first, and then.
Basically, I'm building on what Mrs. Villa said. You said that an important part is professional development and self-learning. So does it matter where you get your certification from? Especially when it comes to example PhD levels. There aren't any PhDs in education in Egypt. So does an online PhD, is it equivalent to a PhD that you actually attend at the university, or do you view those differently?
For PhDs, there are a lot of programs where you can do part of the program online, and then part you would go actually to the campus. Sometimes they do like summer courses where you do the practical part of it, or the courses during the summer, and then the rest of the year you can work online on your dissertation or whatever. But I do believe that having courses as part of your PhD is really very important. Also for your MA, if you're doing an MA. A completely online MA, I do not think is a good qualification. And this is something that I look for when I look at applicants. Have they done a practical part in their MA or in whatever certification they're doing, not just a pure online, which is actually what Nick was saying before about just doing assignments. You have to be in the classroom and hands-on experience to be able to have that experience that you need for the class. It doesn't have to be a huge, like, I don't care, it doesn't have to be 10 years or anything, but you have to have that at least for maybe a year or two.
But the PhD is a little bit different than an MA because the PhD is more about research. So
It is, but there's still programs. I think Indiana University, I think in the States, offers a program where you take courses during the summer, and then the rest you do your research the rest of the year. So you could just travel for the summer, and then the rest of the year you can stay in Egypt and do online. You have a supervisor and something like that. There are other programs, I think, in the UK as well that do something like that.
Okay, we have a question on the floor to the right.
Okay, I have two, one for Nick and one for Alice. For Nick, okay, you said years of program. Is it some kind of like probation
Not probation exactly. It is a 2-year program, and for the first year you don't teach full time. So when you start the TSP, it's actually 15 hours. But you get paid a full-time salary because of all the, fantastic, isn't it? Because of all the other training and the peer observation and the observations you're doing. I think probation generally the British Council is 3 months. So if something doesn't quite work out on either side, then 3 months would be the kind of norm. But basically it's a year-long program, the TSP, and then at the end of that you graduate and then you do a year of full-time, 25 hours a week, teaching like any other teacher. No, 1 year. Yeah, and then you move to another, the second year being full-time teaching. I'm just saying that there probably is a probation of 3 months just in case it doesn't work out on either side. Yeah?
I wouldn't say it's a must. I mean, the problem that comes up is it always depends on what is the pool of applicants you have and how many seats do you have to fill. And so these are things that we will look at least we will take into account. Now, it could be possible that you might not have the bachelor's